Welcome to the Wealthy Artist Podcast. And I'm your host, Sarah Clanton.
And I'm Wilson Harwood. And we're talking about how to develop your wealth,
enjoy financial freedom,
enjoy artistic freedom,
and live the life you've always imagined. And it's got me thinking about why I filled my calendar before, or for me, the pandemic was kind of a forced chill in certain ways. And I kept trying to get back on my feet and get up on tour. I'd been through this crazy, legality thing and being dropped from my deals. And so I couldn't tour because of that. And then I got a tour on the books and the pandemic happened. And so I was like, all right, what is it, universe? And I think in my adult life of 15 plus years of doing this, I haven't ever just taken a break and done nothing as far as not nothing, because we've done a lot. I mean, this is how many episodes? We're in our 40s now of our episodes of our podcast. We're doing a lot.
So during the pandemic,
what we are doing, that perception of what that has shifted even. But just being still and having the opportunity to be with myself more and get a look at all right, what healing do I need to do? Where have I been tired? My voice is rested now. And I am so excited to get back out on the road, but I also have this strange anxiety of man, I've really enjoyed hiding out. And what do I want it to look like for me? And there's actually, I've been talking to a friend of mine who we're calling it lifestyle touring, because we all want to play these gigs and venues that are, highly reputable, that seem like that's where everyone's playing, that we should play. And we have to be careful of absolutes and all the shoulds, right? But I think also there's so many other places where people are craving music, especially now, and that are maybe more in alignment with other values that you have, other beliefs you have. And so, for me, maybe I would play a gluten-free conference or something, or I'm anything that's kind of more, if you're I'm thinking an artist that comes to mind is my friend Carrie Welling here in Nashville. She's also a yoga instructor, so her Patreon is yoga and music, because she's a singer-songwriter. So there's so much more that we sometimes are so tied to an identity, I think. And we stick ourselves in these boxes, and we don't think as expansively as we can. We can't possibly comprehend everything that is possible.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I just so for me, it's a little hard to weigh on this conversation to a certain extent, because I'm producing mostly these days and I'm stuck in the studio. But I do know that I have been thinking about ways to exercise my artist bone.
I
muscle, my artist muscle.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about all the things I never want to do again. I'm I don't ever want to play the shitty bar show for 3 hours. I'm so beyond, I think this idea of leveling up your minimum.
Getting clear on what you want.
Yeah.
You don't have to want to, you can want to play those bar gigs, but you don't have to want to.
Yeah, I didn't want to. So I was for me, I'm okay, if I were to go out on the road again, I would really set my expectations to where I want to be. And I love the idea of thinking outside the box and playing where other artists aren't even trying to play, which seems a little weird maybe, but I think right now that is a smart move.
Or even just a little bit outside of where you think, sure, we all want to play, or maybe not all of us, so I don't want to go absolutes again, but say, we want to play Bonnaroo, because a lot of people know about Bonnaroo, but maybe they're for me, for example, I've been really contemplating, I'm into a lot of different ways of holistic healing, and I've tried so many different modalities, or incorporated and integrated so many different healing modalities into my life that have helped me so much. And there are festivals, I found out this past weekend, I missed it, but there was a folk medicine festival outside of Nashville, and there was music there, and I hadn't heard of any of those bands. And there's just all kinds of stuff that we're not thinking of. For example, I want to be able to tour with my puppy, and so thinking about maybe more dog-friendly cities. I found an app that talks about where you can stay and what restaurants and activities and events are happening in all these different towns where you can bring dogs. Cool. So there's already probably someone who loves what you love, and connecting on that makes the music even more special.
Yeah, that's so true. And have you heard of there's Pups, Brews and Pups or something coming up here in Nashville?
I want to go.
I've seen a couple of these. Yeah, they're great. And that's a perfect example of, hey, they might have live music there. You could hit them up if they might not even be thinking about live music, but then you're hey, I'll throw 5 bands together for you. And suddenly you just created something out of nothing.
Right. And so it could be anything really cool right now, right? And like, I don't want to go back to burnout. That's like maybe my number one goal is like, I feel good. I can tell when I miss too much sleep now. And now this is the, opportunity. This is the privilege that I've had during this pandemic to, not that I haven't like had a lot of fucking roller coaster ups and downs and like, creating this total song registration workshop. And I'm super just like grateful to have the podcast. And there's so many other just cool things happening. So like, first as an artist, like we can just like want to do all the things, right? And we get all fragmented. But like trying to stay with what works. And also what really number one, and we're going to talk about this on the next episode, I think a lot when we talk about Amanda Frances, her book, Rich as Fuck, which is our next episode coming up. But just getting into like your bliss. Joseph Campbell talks so much about this. Great book, Pathway to Bliss. Oh, there's Mavis.
Oh, your doggy's here.
Like really, really what brings you joy? What do you get really fired up to talk about? What, when someone brings up, you're like, oh, I want to talk about it. It makes me feel expansive. Getting in tune with that is really important because there's your abundance right there. And that in itself can feel like a weird kind of like, I don't know, like resistance because you're not used to energetically feeling that way. So you're teaching yourself something new. And I think I'm trying to watch that reaction of seeing people do stuff and feeling like, oh, I got to go catch up. Because that's not a healthy place to book gigs from either. Not going to be able to,
it's not a good place either. So I think your energy has to be like, I really want to play this venue and I can't wait for them to respond. And have this kind of healthy mindset around it. And then obviously when they don't respond, you're also have this mindset that's like sort of realistic. That's like, oh, there's a lot of people reaching out, but the next time, the next time I reach out to them, it'll be the perfect time for me.
Or the perfect person. Oh my God, you have to read Existential Kink. I have to bring this book up. Holy shit. So fucking good. She just, it's so good. I don't even know where to start with this, but she talks about Carolyn Elliott, I believe. She brings up an exercise in this, which I'm trying, and actually it's made me feel really fucking good because I've been feeling so stuck. Like, I know I'm smart. I know I'm talented. I know I can do things. I know I can do hard things. I know I've got the stuff or whatever. But then, like, why am I having trouble, like, taking this action energetically? It's like, oh my God, why can't I sit and, like, write the email? Why can't I sit and make the phone call? And in this book, Existential Kink, Carolyn talks about, all right, as an exercise to like shift getting out of this habit of like when you get rejected or not moving, like not when you're feeling stuck, that's actually like a feeling you're addicted to feeling. And so like, first of all, acknowledge that like some part of you, some crazy part of you wants to like, like experience life like this. And so you have to acknowledge it because if you just beat yourself up, that's not going to work. But then go out and try and get rejected like 30 times. Go and just double your prices and then go out and make 30 phone calls, do, 30 whatever things and just whatever. Just go out and do it. And when you get rejected, you just have to deal with it and like kind of learning to relish the rejection instead of being like, oh, I'm rejected.
I know. Well, I can relate to that right now. I can relate to that right now. I am sitting in it, and this is all my inner work that I've been doing with Rich as Fuck, which you guys are gonna.
I can't wait to talk about this.
Sarah got me. I know, me neither. Sarah got me hooked on this book, and she's good.
I peer pressured you into reading this.
All listen to everything Sarah tells you to read because her recommendations are on point.
Thank you, Wilson.
I agree. And this book did. You were like, it's going to change your life. I'm like, it did change my life. And more importantly, it changed my mindset.
Yeah.
And so now. But what I was going to get at is just in the last couple of weeks, I've been sending out proposals for the studio for the highest amount I've ever done. And every time, and this goes for all of you artists out there who maybe can't relate to sending out proposals, think about sending out, you could relate to sending out proposals for like weddings.
Yeah, booking, any
corporate
booking.
gigs. But also, when you're booking shows and
reaching out to anyone.
What is your, what is your fee or whatever for playing a gig? start trying to push that energetic minimum that you used to do. Like, I know when I started playing shows, there were times when I would play for like $50, $150. And I can tell you right now, I would never do that again, unless I loved that place. But at some point, you're going to get to a point in your career where you're like, I wouldn't pay for anything less than $1,000. And then it might be $10,000. And then hopefully one day it'll be like $15,000
or
per
more,
show. Or more. And you're like, I couldn't even imagine not playing for $15,000. Like, that'd be crazy.
Right.
So what you're saying is so true, that you have to sit in the feeling, the uncomfortable feeling, and you'll have thoughts like, oh,
it's just new. It's different.
Like, but those thoughts are going to shoot through your mind like, oh man, I wonder if they have enough money to pay me. They probably don't. I should probably lower. Oh, there's probably so much competition. I should probably lower my rates so I can beat out the competition. You're going to have all these thoughts that are like your old way of thinking.
Right.
And you have to literally have the courage. It literally is
and
courage.
Awareness. Yeah, and courage and awareness. Courage to have the awareness.
With those. Yeah, courage to have the awareness, and then to sit with the awareness and not give into it.
Right.
So not give into the feeling of like, oh, for me, the thought of, God, they're just artists. I bet they're working like some job that doesn't pay very well. I probably shouldn't charge what I deserve. I should probably charge what, these are, and it's totally irrational. It doesn't make any sense, but this is the way I've been thinking.
Oh my God. Existential Kink talks so much about this, because actually when you double your rate and reach out to more people, you will have people who will pay that rate, and they're going to be more energetically aligned. They're going to value what you're doing more, and you will have significantly changed your financial situation with fewer people. And you will have the experience now of being rejected more. And oh my God, in this book, it's so crazy. Like, she talks about, because like I have my own blocks. Like, okay, I know all this stuff. I like do the meditations, and like, why am I still not seeing the numbers that I would like to in my financial reality right now? Like, what am I like energetically not sitting right with? And I just love how she talks about some part of us, again, is like getting off on fucking up, being in scarcity mode, and until we acknowledge it and really embrace it, like, oh man, wow, self, you've done such a great job being in this shitty place. Look, you experienced it, really feel it. And she gives all these great exercises, and that's really true for me, because I think that with some, and now most importantly, she points out in this book that like if you've had some really big losses and things, like it's really important before doing existential kink work to fully grieve your loss. And so like when I got dropped from my labels and all my world fell apart, or like when any of us, like this ambiguous loss of the pandemic, all of our plans got smushed, so as we're all grieving in our own ways and processing it and coming back to touring in our own ways, or music, and however it's changed for us, maybe some of us are like, you know what, we're going to keep live streaming and we're not going to go back on the road for a while, or whatever it looks like for you. If you're also like a healer and you're doing some kind of energy work, like our friend Casey Lane on that podcast, and it's just so expansive, all the possibilities. And so it's okay if you take the time you need to take and everybody is, you're where you need to be, you're on your path, and the more we can get out of thinking like, well, this person's doing that and this person's doing that, then I should do that, and get really in touch with what we want. Realize we are where we are on energetic some level because we've put ourselves in this place. Then you can really start to do. I think this book actually, like, I would recommend reading first, but for Amanda Francis's Rich as Fuck, which we're going to talk about next, because or maybe simultaneously. I'm actually reading Amanda's book again right now, and really just taking time, because I do like soak up so much book. Some of these books you should really study. Yes. And I think both those books sound like ones you should write, you should work with, you should work on what they're saying. Totally. And that's actually true with all the books we recommend. If there's ever a book that resonates with you, where you're reading it and you're like, you know what? Instead of just kind of flying through it and like adding it to my knowledge base, I want to actually do what it tells me to do. Yeah, and integrate it into my life. I think it's super smart to like stop all the obsessive reading, stop all the obsessive like intake, and take one piece of knowledge, one book. Stop listening to tons of podcasts. Stop listening to like overloading your mind, and just focus on that one book. I think that's super important. Or just slow down with all of it, or give yourself, like for me, it really helps for me to listen or do something in the morning first, like whether it be reading or a meditation or both. and then making myself stop. Like, you're right. Like, have the balance. Don't obsessively just do it. Cause I do love to like soak it up and, but I've noticed an energetic change in myself when I do keep certain things in my ears, and I've noticed it in both of us, and that's like part of why we're here right now. But I just encourage all you wealthy artists out there, whatever your plans are moving forward right now in this new age. I don't like to use the words like going back to touring as much. I think with our language, we should really be aware and I'm trying to gain a lot of awareness around that. Like, as far as, like what we're calling our new normal, what's comfortable for people now, I think we all just need to be gentle and compassionate with ourselves and with each other. And the gigs are going to be there. Like, if anything, we're all just very excited to play music again and to play shows. But I think rushing out just to take the gigs because people are doing it is not always it could be the most healthy thing for you. Maybe not. I just heard of this thing called the Roadie Clinic. And they were just featured in Rolling Stone. Did I tell you about this?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Oh my gosh. I want to learn more about them. I want to have them on the podcast. If by some chance you're listening, the Roadie Clinic, you're so cool. So they help artists manage like mental health and healthy touring. And they were featured in Rolling Stone about what they do. I just found them on Instagram recently, but I was just like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because I know that for me, I have friends who can play like 6 shows a week or more, and they're fine. Like, I don't have that capacity. And I'm like, and I've like gotten down to myself, like, well, shouldn't I be able to do that? And I'm like, well, maybe my energy just needs to go somewhere else. But really getting quiet with yourself and, is this what I want? What do I want? Yeah. And it can be scary. It's taken me weeks to answer that question. Like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and maybe months. Yeah. Like, what do I want? I don't think I'm
there yet. I think that what do I want question is like a meditation that honestly I think all of us should approach daily. Yeah. At some point in your day, like kind of tapping into a journal about it. What do I desire?
I think desire is a good word too, because want sometimes implies lacking.
Yeah, it could, yeah.
I think, like, what do you desire? Like, what lights you up? It doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah, I think that's great if it doesn't make sense. And one thing too that I was going to say about this, like, post-pandemic, if we can even call it that yet.
Yeah, no, see, that's the other thing. Where the hell are we in all of this anyway?
It's feeling like that, yeah. But I think, like, the one thing that's really cool that we should really feel into is that the pandemic was a pattern interrupt. And it was a complete like shift on our habits. And one thing I've learned from tons and tons of research is that unfortunately we're mostly creatures of habit rather than willpower alone. And so I think a lot of us kind of just like go through our days working through old habits and not realizing that some of those habits might not be helpful, or that maybe our desires have changed and therefore we need to develop new habits.
And that's okay.
And that's totally okay. But I think this is a perfect opportunity to actually take a second, take a breather still as you like re-emerge after the pandemic and be like, I want to re-emerge with intention and like a really good integrity. Yeah, like a really good positive energy and like idea of like what I want the next, year to 5 to 10 years to kind of feel like in my life.
To feel like, oh my gosh, to feel like totally. Yeah, so I think it's just something that we wanted to definitely talk about. We'd love to know how you all are feeling about getting out there and playing shows after being not playing shows for a while. Yeah. Please leave us a comment on YouTube or write a review, leaving us 5 stars. We'd love to know more about what you would like to talk about. We have some exciting interviews coming up for you all, talking about all kinds of things. We just had Michael Ransom on the show talking about why you need a lawyer and when to get one right now, yesterday. I'm just so excited coming up here close to 50 episodes. This is so cool. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for keeping the conversation going. And we just are here to empower each other. Because I think there's really something to, when we take the time to heal ourselves and do the work on ourselves, it reflects in the world, and it literally has an impact. So you're worth it. Take the time. Thanks for listening. You're awesome. Yeah.
And rate us emails. I would love to do more like answering questions in these episodes.
Please. So if the wealthyartistpodcast at gmail.com. Send us an email.
Easy. Yeah, send us an email because it would be great to start having a back and forth. We'll like read your emails on the air.
Or send us a message on Instagram at the Wealthy Artist Podcast. We can answer your questions or take them there to answer here on the podcast. And we have new episodes every Monday.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we love you all. You are worthy.
You are worthy.
See you next week.